now and crucial for Vancouver.
So you're calling for an increased carbon tax?
I'm calling for the region to get a share of the carbon tax that begins in 2012. So it's the next phase of the carbon tax, I think, needs to be applied to public transit on the ground in Metro Vancouver.
Ms. Anton, did you support the tax?
I support the 2 cents, yes I do.
Yes.
I do not support any further increase in the property taxes. I've made my position very clear on that. I don't think we've heard from Gregor yet whether he supports that or not. And by the way, the other tax I do not support is a proposed container tax for every container that comes through the Port of Vancouver, that some of that should go into transportation. That's a job-killing tax. I tried to get that off the table at City Council the other day, but Council refused to go along with it. On transportation, 2 things. First of all, the streetcar. We are going to put, again, the partnerships together, private partner. The other guys are allergic to private partners, so they can't do that, but we can. We will put a private partner together with the federal government and get that streetcar built. People love the streetcar, and I can't wait to see it running again in Vancouver. At the same time, I will be the biggest promoter of the Broadway line, as I always have been. It needs to be the next rapid transit project after Evergreen Line. We've got to get Evergreen, then Broadway. You cannot move people down Broadway effectively without having rapid transit.
So how will you pay for Broadway?
Well, that remains to be seen. That will be a big collaborative partnership, just like the Evergreen Line is, except I hope that it does not have the same growing pains. I will make sure that Vancouver has good, solid leadership in that. Gregor only went to half the TransLink meetings in the last 3 years.
Suzanne,
You've got to be at the table. You've got to be the one. We lost priority. In fact, in the regional growth strategy, the Broadway line kind of receded in importance. It needs to be tops after Evergreen.
Mr. Robertson, a number of issues have been raised. Property tax. Ms. Anton says she does not want to see property owners have to pay for the Evergreen line or future transit through property taxation. Can that be accomplished?
That remains to be seen, and the majority of mayors across the region voted for property tax to be a backup funding source in 2013 for a limited time period if we can't get a new funding deal with the province. So the focus is on getting a whole new set of tools, because that combination right now of property tax, using potentially of using vehicle levies, parking tax, which has been very controversial. The tools we have on the table have been maximized, and frankly, they're not the best tools to be using for funding transit. So I want to see new tools on the table. Property tax not part of that equation, and I'm supported by mayors across the region. This is our goal to accomplish over the coming months.
And what about the container tax?
Well, the container tax is something that needs to be on the table just to assess. At this point, this isn't the time to take things off the table. We want to understand where the opportunities are that keep us competitive, that get funding in place for transit to grow. The Broadway line is our top priority. It is not building a $200 million streetcar line financed out of the back pocket of city halls. It's counting on taxpayers in Vancouver to pay for our own streetcar when TransLink, the provincial and federal governments do not support it, have not pledged funding to it, is a pipe dream. We all love streetcars. We'd love to see a network eventually, but we have to focus on reality, and we have to minimize the risk to Vancouver taxpayers. And the streetcar throws everything at risk, just as the Olympic Village did years ago.
How could the Broadway line, how soon could it be accomplished?
Well, it is the next rapid transit project along with Surrey Rapid Transit. The Evergreen line has been first and has been long overdue.
But it's taken more than 10 years to accomplish that.
It has. The Canada line jumped the queue and got done, and it has been a roaring success. We're seeing exceptional numbers in terms of transit growth. Ridership is going through the roof right now. We need that Broadway line. It'll be an efficient line, and it'll be a contributor in terms of funding from the day it opens, I believe. And Broadway line out to UBC and the Surrey Rapid Transit, which light rail is what Mayor Watts has been pushing for. I think she's spot on with that. Those are the next two priorities that for the region to build.
What technology would you use on Broadway?
Actually, the two priorities, there is one priority, and that's the Broadway line. It's the completion of the SkyTrain, the Millennium Line bill. It would need to go underground along Broadway, perhaps as far as Arbutus, and then with a link to UBC. Don't know yet what that UBC line would look like. You know, to say you can't do the streetcar, of course you can do the streetcar. Bill, you're wondering about how long the Broadway line will take. It will take some time. There's no doubt about that. We can do the streetcar right now. The city has assembled the land. The city's already made a large investment in it.
How would you pay for it?
The bill is probably about half of what Gregor's saying. The numbers get wildly larger every time he talks about it. Probably around $100 million. I will put don't forget the city, as I said, has invested. Private partner, federal government funding, And I believe we can put the package together in that way. It will be a collaboration with TransLink, but it's not TransLink funding.
Mr. Robertson, the Vancouver and District Labour Council has endorsed Vision. How indebted to the unions will you be?
Not at all. We will be focused on maintaining a good, respectful relationship with our labor unions at the city, in stark contrast to what we saw years ago when we had a 3-month garbage strike that was absolutely unnecessary. No other city around the region had it. Vancouver ended up with the same deal as everywhere else as a result of that, but just totally incompetent labor relations and managing that relationship in particular. We've had a good constructive relationship. I think we've been fair and stern. We've had to really sharpen our pencils on the city budget over these last 3 years. The recession hit, the pressure of the NPA deal on the Olympic Village that we had to clean up has made it very difficult in the city budget. And we obviously had to trim our belts at City Hall, and positions had to be cut. But we managed to do that working in partnership with our unions. And made it possible without actually laying people off. It was minimal impact in terms of layoffs, but we were flexible and creative with how we reduced the expenses of the city.
Ms. Anton, how would you contain costs?
Well, I wouldn't spend money on frivolous things, first of all.
Such as?
Well, let me give you a couple of examples. Water meters is one. $500,000 a year for a useless program. In the end of the day, that water meters will cost Vancouver $45 million. We had the wheat fields and the chickens. You've got to spend your money and your time and your resources on services that are needed by the City of Vancouver taxpayers. People want their grass cut. They want their wading pools full. They want their sidewalks repaired. Sidewalk repair, by the way, is something I've heard about a lot during the course of this campaign. Gregor, by the way, a couple of times now has referred to the Olympic Village. Interesting, because he ran on the Olympic Village.
He won on the Olympic Village.
He won on the Olympic Village, but somebody
cleaning
leaked
up the mess of the Olympic Village. The taxpayers had no idea what was going on.
Somebody leaked information to the paper, and that was very helpful to Gregor's campaign. Interestingly enough, Gregor refuses to tell the taxpayers, refuses to tell us, refuses even to tell me, a councillor, what the expected losses on the Olympic Village are. Are they 200 million? Are they 300 million? Because I can guarantee you, they know, we know, the city knows. But taxpayers don't know, and I as a councillor don't even know. There are serious losses on that village, and that is being hidden from the voters during this election.
That's preposterous. Suzanne, can you tell me what an Olympic Village condo is going to sell for in 2 years? Because it's the market that is driving it. There's still hundreds of units that will be put on the market. Those will drive the return to the city. And unfortunately, you know, when I opened the books on that in day one and said I would make them all public, we did that. We were transparent with the entire deal. And we went right to it, fixing the mess and renegotiating a financing deal that the NPA had done at 11.5% with a Wall Street hedge fund, $100 million savings by renegotiating that with Canadian banks. I mean, coming in and taking a hard-nosed business approach to it was the only thing that turned it around, that got the village built.
Has it turned around?
Bill,
it has turned around as best as possible, but when you start out with the catastrophe that was negotiated, and Vancouver taxpayers were forced to take responsibility for this. Taxpayers were put on the hook in secret by the NPA Council. So it's been digging out of this for years. Fortunately, we have a strong real estate market that is now helping to recoup those investments. But as to whether we get through this making our money back, I think it is a total long shot at this point. The accountants have said in the city books about a $50 million loss is what's predictable right now on a $1 billion deal. It may be more if the market doesn't stay strong, and it may be in less if the market is very strong in the years ahead. But it all depends on the market and people's uptake. So fortunately, we're seeing people buy those. They're great condos, and we're seeing people buy them, and that village come to life, which is a big step forward after the dark shadow it was under 3 years ago.
Ms. Anton?
Bill, I guarantee you that every developer in town knows what they expect to get from their condos. They have a ballpark on what the sale price will be. That number is known to staff, it's known to the receiver, it's probably even known to Gregor, but it is being hidden from the listening audience, the viewing audience, as even being hidden from City Council.
But you cannot predict the future. You knew what you thought those condos would be worth, and then the recession hit in 2008, and it killed the market. So there's no certainty when it comes to real estate development.
It's not certainty, Bill, but there's certainly a predicted number in there, and it's that predicted number which is not being told. By the way, on this sort of revisionist history that we're getting, the challenge on the Olympic Village was that it was redesigned in the council that preceded our NPA council. It was all the profitability was taken out of it. We were handed it on a plate in 2005 and say, build this, and by the way, build it in time for the Olympics. All of the decisions that were made during that council, Virtually all of them were unanimous.
You're referring to social housing and to the LEED's standard.
No, the squashing down of the buildings.
That too.
When you make a building 8 stories tall, instead of having the tower and podium, when you make them that complicated, so there's no right angles, everything is complicated, everyone who builds knows that that's a very difficult project to build, particularly when you have to do it in 3 years' time. There were developers who told me, don't even try it, you can't do it. We tried it, we did it, we got it built, but there were costs, and those costs are now being hidden from the taxpayers of Vancouver.
Mr. Robertson, there are people out there thinking today that Occupy Vancouver is your Olympic Village. It was the Olympic Village that did in the NPA 3 years ago, and there are people, I'm sure we'll hear from them in the next half hour, who think your handling of the Olympic, the site out on the Art Gallery lawn, Occupy Vancouver, is what's going to do you in.
No, very, very different circumstances. I mean, I think the NPA was done in by being atrocious on homelessness and a crisis being allowed to happen on our streets, by a 3-month garbage strike, by 20% tax increase over 3 years. There were multiple reasons why the NPA went down, and they went down hard. In this situation, we have a global movement right now. Vancouver is part of that. It's a very difficult one. We're doing everything that we can to keep it peaceful and find a sensible resolution. And I think people understand how difficult the situation is and want to see it end peacefully.
We break for the news. Then we will come back with your calls. 604-280-9898.
At home or at work, listen online at cknw.com. It's 9:30. This is CKNW News Talk 980, BC's most listened to radio station.
Good morning, I'm Gord McDonald. Our top stories: the Occupy Vancouver protest camp at the Art Gallery, the first topic in today's debate on CKNW between Vision Vancouver's Gregor Robertson and the NPA's Suzanne Anton. Right off the top, Anton was asked how she would end the encampment. She didn't have an answer.
First of all, the tents should not have been allowed to stay up. Secondly, they should not have been allowed to stay up for so long. It's gone on for 3 weeks now. Gregor, of course, at first said, well, you can stay as long as you like. That was a very bad signal to send out from City Hall. The tents needed to come down immediately. They needed to come down 2 weeks ago. They need to come down last week. The steps staff are taking today, I gather, to give people notices, that could have been done 2 weeks ago.
On the issue of the young woman dying of a suspected overdose at the camp Saturday, Robertson went on the attack.
The death is a horrible tragedy, and what is really unfortunate is Suzanne playing politics with this, and I think it's upset people on the site. It's upsetting to all of us when this becomes a political football. We have an extraordinarily difficult situation that cities all over the world are grappling with right now. There is no easy answer. We want to resolve this peacefully, but turning it into a political issue and effectively manipulating it as such, I think, has made it a lot more difficult.
Robertson and Anton's debate continues in just a few moments here on CKNW. One of the Richmond plane crash survivors still in critical but stable condition in hospital. Vancouver Coastal Health says 3 other survivors also stable, 2 of those possibly being discharged from hospital soon. At 9:32, time for traffic. Here's Jen Cole.
In North Vancouver, dealing with a stall on Mount Seymour Parkway westbound just past Riverside Drive in the left lane. Also extremely heavy off the North Shore right now after an earlier accident on the Ironworkers southbound. You're just gridlocked on all your surrounding streets. Langley Chrysler has provided exceptional service on new and used vehicles for over 35 years. Call 534-5355 or visit langleychrysler.com. I'm Jen Coles with your all-day traffic on CKNW News Talk 980. For instant traffic updates, go to AM 730, all traffic all the time.
CKNW Traffic
is brought to you by Lori Pinkowski, Associate Portfolio Manager at Raymond James. Listen for Lori's Making Sense of the Market, Friday at 5:35 on The World Today with John McComb.
Mark Madriga's weather. We've got rain today, rain tonight, cloudy with a chance of rain tomorrow. Highs to 9 outside Pacific Center, 5 degrees. CKNW News Time approaching 9:33. I'm Gord McDonald.
Years now, Suzanne Anton wants to be. They are both in studio, and my phones are open to you. Please be succinct and choose a candidate to address your issue, and I will give the other a chance to follow. 604-280-9898. Mario, good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
Doing well. Please go ahead.
I'm addressing Mayor Robertson. My question to you is, why did you send in the fire chief in to Occupy Vancouver to pull off some bylaw nonsense when you could have taken leadership yourself? I thought that was kind of a bit of a greaseball move on that part. Can you